If this goes live, I'm probably already dead. That's not paranoia talking. It's just math. 3 men from my old team are already gone. Cardiac arrests, car accidents, unfortunate timing. So if I suddenly disappear, or this file gets scrubbed like the others, you'll know I was telling the truth. I was part of something in 1990, a mission that never made the news, never got logged with NASA, and never shows up on any search engine. You'll find a gap in the records if you look closely. Ka, a launch that doesn't quite fit. We were told it was a systems test. Low orbit diagnostics. But we went further, much further. And we weren't alone. We weren't warned with words, Cray. We were warned by what we saw and what it did to us. Psych evaluations after we got back were inconclusive. One guy peeled the skin off his own hands because he could still feel the dust. Another spent 6 weeks speaking backward in his sleep. The last one, he didn't say anything. He just watched. They buried everything, but they missed one thing. The only footage left. The reason I still wake up choking is on a tape shouldn't have kept. Let me know when to expand the next section. They called it Project Ecodusta Passive. Notation buried beneath layers of departmental jargon and internal memos that were wiped before the ink dried. At the time, I was a systems engineer contracted through NASA via a civilian subcontractor. No name on the patch, no mission briefing, disk coordinates, a launch window, and a confidentiality agreement thicker than the launch manual. They told us it was a simulation. High-altitude telemetry loop testing, they said. Standard orbit work. Same junk they always used to justify the absurd logistics of a manned launch that wasn't on anyone's calendar. Only it was manned, and it wasn't remote. When I asked why so many people from Langley were sitting in on the pre-launch review, one suit leaned over, whispered like he was reciting a bedtime story. You didn't see anything. You didn't breathe anything. You didn't hear anything. And that was that. The shuttle lifted off under full blackout protocols. No NASA live feed, no news coverage. Even outcomes were routed through a private satellite array. It wasn't a simulation, it was real, here. From the moment the engines ignited, we were off the script. Up there, in the silence, everything felt too quiet. No background chatter. No mission banter, just numbers cracking between cold lines of code. 6 hours into the mission, telemetry began to drift by fractions, not enough to panic ground control, but enough for us to notice something was listening. Signals bounced back, delayed, distorted, and then the signal came through, a tone repeating, faint, buried so deep in the baseband, they thought it was a feedback loop until it started shifting. Modulating, like it was adjusting to us. There are still no official records. The mission didn't exist. Ecodust was a whisper buried in a black ledger somewhere, but if you know the right people and they trust you enough to bring out the whiskey, you can hear that signal, can hear it in the black box. Logs. And God help you if you understand it. Me know when you're ready to expand. The next section, by the time we hit lunar descent, every camera feed was degrading. Static. Artifacts. Like something was interfering, but only with video. The telemetry feeds had started to invert. Our navigational data flipping coordinates between polar angles. At first, we thought it was a temporary glitch. part of the ionosphere bounce. But the deeper we dropped, the clearer the distortion became, and then we heard it, faint at first. A low musical hum, like old Tibetan throat singing fed through a broken amplifier. It threaded itself through every channel radio. Cabin comes, na vi sync. It wasn't inside the walls. It was inside the signal. We tried isolating it, blocking it. Muting didn't work. The hum would vanish just long enough for you to believe you'd imagined it, kill, then return louder, sliding under your skin. I remember one of the crew Thompson saying it didn't sound like a recording. "It's not playback," he whispered. "It's a broadcast." We touched down near the edge of a crater, a region no other mission had charted, officially not even Apollo, though I later found a map that told a different story. The dust around us felt heavier, clumped weirdly, almost magnetic. It didn't blow away like you'd expect when disturbed. It settled back, like it was filling in the prints. That's where we saw the symbols, carved directly into exposed rock half-moons, spiraling glyphs, geometric alignments we later found mirrored in Sumerian structures and Polynesian petroglyphs. But the spacing, it looked intentional. Freshed out Thompson broke formation, just a few steps forward. Ted. When he froze, I saw him staring over the ridge, body locked stiff. When I called to him, he didn't answer, he said. Later, he couldn't move, not because he was afraid, but because it was watching him. He described it like a pillar, tall, smooth. Nothing human except the way it tilted its head. It wasn't moving, it was waiting. There's a file buried in the Apollo 17 audio that plays a nearly identical hum. NASA called it a ground loop issue, but it's not pre-matched to frequencies. The pitch is the same. We didn't land on virgin ground. We landed where they wait. We were in quarantine for 2 weeks after return. Standard procedure, they told us. Predation scans, decontamination sweeps, psychological evaluation. But it wasn't standard. Not really. We were sealed in separate rooms. Concrete tombs with two-way mirrors and food trays shoved through hatches like we were dangerous by day 3. Thompson started to break. He scratched something into the glass of his chamber, window over and over until his fingers bled through the gloves they gave him. Gade. I couldn't read it then, but I saw the shape, the spiral, just like the glyphs on the rock. 2 days later, he collapsed. The footage showed him speaking before he died, mumbling something under his breath in a low frequency. No one could make it out at the time, but one of the medical staff reversed the audio during an autopsy review. What he was saying, clear as day: "Do not return." After that, things moved quickly. Our records were pulled overnight. Telemetry data wiped off the drives. Even the backup cores that were supposedly air-gapped came back blank, but I had a copy. I wasn't supposed to, but I made it during final hours testing from a downstream cache clone. At first, I thought it was identical. Then I saw the extra footage, a camera feed from a top-down angle. It, not from inside the lander, not mounted on any known part of the rig. It showed us walking, but from the perspective of something high, watching us. There was movement just beneath the surface dust, cut like a ripple in dark water, circling where we stood. After that, no more questions were asked. No press, no interviews, no orbital scans of that crater ever again. A black Suburban showed up the next day with a clipboard and a box of red tape. The men in suits didn't say a word. They walked out with everything: paper drives, notebook sieve and the receipt logs. They didn't bury it. They erased it. Thompson's name was removed from the crew list. The mission was relabeled as a cancelled test flight. I checked the record later. The launch number skips from STS-37 to STS-39. And then it was just gone. The only reason I ever saw the footage was a clerical fluke one, physical tape left behind in a mislabeled scan box, shipped to a satellite archive facility in Arizona instead of Langley. Dead. It was logged as thermal diagnostic footage. It wasn't. The tape opens in dead silence. Cunningham is walking along the outer ridge of the crater knot, unusual at first glance, but the timestamp doesn't match any approved excursion. He wasn't supposed to be out there. He wasn't supposed to be alone. He moved slowly, like he's being pulled forward. The suit reads stable vitals, but his posture is ... wrong. Helmet tilted. Shoulders drawn in like he's listening to something. His path drifts away from the beacon markers. No radio logs show any deviation. Then, the external mic picks up a crackling humba, same one from the landing feed, but deeper now, rhythmic. His helmet begins to fog from the inside. He stops, shakes once, then again. Then stillness. Something enters frame from behind. It's 2-scale, human shape but jagged around the joints, like a fracture held together by tension alone. The figure flickers like corrupted video, even though it's being filmed in real dash time. As it nears Cunningham. Day. The recording cuts to static that his body was recovered the next day miles from his last recorded location. No footprints. No tracks. Just him, kneeling in the dust like he'd been placed there gently. He never moved again. Never spoke. Just ... stood facing the sky until he didn't breathe. Looking back, I don't think we were sent there to discover anything. I think we were sent to confirm it. The symbols carved into the rock, those spirals, those fractured crescents, they weren't erosion. They weren't some cosmic accident. I'd seen their analogs before, tucked away in black and white scans from Mesopotamian dig sites, Sumerian tablets with lunar gods etched so precisely they looked modern, and worsen. Every one of those tablets, the gods had no eyes, just voids. I spent years after Echo Dust cross-referencing what I'd seen with everything I wasn't supposed. To Mars, Europa, even that old grainy shot from the Sidonia face anomaly. They don't match, not exactly, but the fractured patterns in the signal logs, the harmonic hum buried under every mission's ambient sound. They're the same. It wasn't an isolated contact. It was a thread, one that loops beneath everything NASA abandoned one that everyone stopped talking about at the same time. You want to believe we stopped going to the moon because of funding, politics, public boredom. But we didn't. We never stopped going. We just stopped telling you when we did. And whatever we talked to on that surface, it didn't care for being found. The footage you've seen, the logs they declassified, they're not complete. They're scrubbed simulations, set dressing for a public that wasn't supposed to ask what happened between 72 and 90. Because the moon isn't dead rock. It's not empty. It just knows how to stay quiet. 3 of us left the program after Echo-Dust. Now, I'm the only one still breathing. Reed's car lost its brakes on an empty highway last spring. No skid marks. No impact wounds. Just ... silence on the dash cam when it should have recorded everything. Kenmore died in his sleep. Aneurysm, they said, but the coroner's report was sealed. His wife told me he woke up the night before, screaming in reverse. And Thompson slit his wrists in the basement of a church he'd never attended, wearing his old flight suit and staring into a mirror. Me. Asterisk. I kept the tape. I buried it, locked it 6 layers deep in an offline vault. And somehow, it still went missing. Last month, no break-in, no breach. Just gone. I've heard the hum twice since, both times when I was alone, both times. My phone recorded it before I ever pressed record, and now you've heard it too. You think this is a story, some internet thing, but it's not. It never was. This is a confession. If this uploads, you at least know what we found. What? Found us beat, but you still won't believe it. Until you hear them call your name back. Soft hum rises, then abrupt distortion glitch.